Discover the incredible truth behind a single dad's transformation after slashing a CEO's tires. Jake's hands trembled as he tightened the bolts on another engine, the familiar clang of metal ringing hollow in his ears. It had been a long week, one where hope felt like a distant star, and he was just a weary traveler gazing from the abyss. At 35, he was a mechanic who took pride in his work, one of the few things he felt he could control. But recently, the weight of impending bills loomed heavy. With bills piling up, it felt like his world was crumbling, squeezing out laughter from small, cozy corners of their home. Every morning, he woke up before the sun, brewing coffee and forcing a smile for Lily, his 10-year-old daughter whose energy lit up everything. But her laughter had become the soundtrack of a bittersweet existence. The rings of life's laughter felt muffled now, drowned out by financial insecurities and the fear of losing even more than he had already lost. Then came the unforeseen news. His best friend, Tom, had been fired by the new CEO, a corporate outsider with no grasp of their struggles. That pain, a dagger thrust into his heart, fed the growing inferno of frustration inside. He felt a creeping betrayal and the unshakable question, how many more would suffer like Tom? Billy had renewed the engine of his anger. It poured through his veins, igniting a rebellion that had been waiting under the surface. Standing in their small saltbox house, the longing for a better life twisted into rage against the nameless corporate forces that trampled on hard work and dedication. The thought of slashing the CEO's tires materialized like a tempestuous storm. In that moment of madness, Jake acted, swinging the sharpened blade of his anger as he vandalized the CEO's pristine car at the dealership parking lot. But immediately, fear cloaked him. What did he just do? The thrill of liberation mingled with dread. He'd crossed a line, one he never thought he would. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In an unexpected twist, the incident did not go unnoticed. Out from the shadows of the neighborhood, Mr. Thompson, an elderly neighbor and former corporate lawyer, emerged with an eye that saw not just a reckless act, but potential. He saw inner turmoil that reminded him of a younger self. "You could have chosen a different path," he said with an unsettling calmness. It terrified Jake to realize that there was more to be gained from words than from violence. Guided by Mr. Thompson's wisdom, Jake ventured into a world he had never dreamed of, diving headfirst into advocacy with a burgeoning skill for persuasion. He began to connect the threads of resentment into a narrative, but with each step, tension escalated within. The community tightened around them as the question of their own worth echoed through empty streets, whispering tales of class struggle and diminishment. With each passing day, the collision between ambition and ethics took shape. Underneath the surface, Jake wrestled with despair. Could fighting the system bring them together, or would it deepen the divide? The approaching public forum loomed like a storm cloud over his head. Every thought felt like a noose tightening around his conscience. Was he ready for this confrontation? As he prepared to face the CEO, the reality of the people relying on him crashed down. What did justice look like for families like his? On the brink of confrontation, Jake gripped Lily's crayon drawings, reminders of innocent hopes. The question echoed with fervor. Was he strong enough to unite the fractured pieces of their fractured reality? As silence hung, a deep breath couldn't ease the fear. The answer remained tantalizingly out of reach, leaving the heart of the story thrumming with tension, waiting for the next twist in Jake's unfolding journey. Jake stood at the edge of the small local community hall. its walls towering around him like unyielding sentinels. The public forum awaited him like an uncharted sea, filled with unknown currents and threatening waves. He could hear the murmurs of the small crowd gathering inside, family faces creased with worry. Each whisper seemed to tangle in his mind, amplifying his uncertainty. The stakes felt uncomfortably high, the air stifled beneath the burden of expectations. The frustration from his earlier actions gnawed at him, pulling him back into that dark split-second moment of vandalism. He could still recall the glint of the knife cutting through the tension of his existence, and now that blade felt emblematic of his fears, sharp, dangerous, obstinately etched into his reality. Would his act, born from desperation, serve as a catalyst for change, or merely deepen the divide he feared? As he grasped his notes, a disorganized collection of thoughts and ideas, he could feel his hands sweating, a reminder that he was still, at his core, a man steeped in self-doubt. This would-be rebellion demanded something more than anger. It needed authenticity, a conviction he was struggling to summon. Where he sought to ignite a fire within others, he himself felt smothered by the uncertainty of his aim. Outside, Lily's laughter echoed in his mind, a bright beacon fighting through the fog of despair. She deserved more than what his past choices could offer, a father who cowered in fear. It was a desperate thought that melded into his resolve. He couldn't shield her from the world forever. If he wanted to build something new, he needed to confront his demons. Not just thrash against them. Rehearsing his speech felt like trying to push water uphill, frustrating and futile. The words floated in his mind like leaves on the wind, instead of forming into the powerful message he knew they needed. He closed his eyes, recalling Mr. Thompson's steady gaze and measured encouragement. "You are more than you believe, Jake. Use your hands to build a bridge." Bridges. He needed to build a bridge, not just between himself and the audience, but connecting each one of them to their own stories. The very community he sought to serve had shared a lifetime of struggles, woven with moments of resilience and hope. Would relaying those interconnected truths incite change? Placing his notes down, he forced himself to breathe deeply, counting slowly. He pictured that gathering of familiar faces, terrified and hopeful alike. How could he not speak for them? With each ticking second, Jake embraced the swirl of anxiety that accompanied knowledge, that change often commenced with uncomfortable confrontation. A ripple of clarity surged through him, igniting a determination to embrace vulnerability. He stepped away from the worry of making every word perfect. He would approach this like he approached an engine, without fear of dents and scratches, but with the intent of understanding how it works. This was not merely his voice he was preparing to share. It would resonate with the countless stories of sacrifice and perseverance surrounding him. With renewed purpose, he made his way toward the folding doors. The voices inside crescendoed into a cohesive roar. Jake would not silence his rebellion. He would turn it into a symphony of shared struggle. Stepping over the threshold, he found himself drenched in the weight of expectation. Would he emerge as the voice that rallied them together, or would he simply fall short of their hope? The moment of truth was behind those doors. Would the man who once acted in rage find something greater in his voice? The thrill of stepping onto that stage flowed through his veins alongside an awe-inducing fear. What awaited him, he could only grasp in the shadow of the looming confrontation. As Jake crossed the threshold, he felt the collective energy of the crowd wash over him. Their breaths mingled in the space, filling it with both unease and expectation. The eyes that turned to him were filled not just with worry, but with a hunger for understanding, for guidance. In that instant, Jake realized this was not just about him. It was a powerful confluence of shared narratives, woven together by scars both visible and buried deep. He approached the podium, heart racing, not just with fear, but with a nascent sense of responsibility coursing through him. He had spent so long doubting his worth, but now, for the first time, he could see the value in using his voice. It pulsed within him, a flame seeking to ignite something vital in the souls before him. The script on the podium trembled in front of him. It was a jumbled expression of emotions he barely recognized as his own. With a subtle shake, he set the notes aside and took a breath. It wasn't about perfect diction or rehearsed lines. It was about authenticity. Clearing his throat, he opened his mouth, willing the truth that had eluded him for so long to spill forth. "I'm here today not just to share my story, but to connect with yours," he began, the tremor in his voice gradually stabilizing. His gaze wandered the audience, landing on familiar faces that silently pleaded for hope. "I made a choice in a moment of anger that damaged more than tires. It fractured trust and deepened divides." The murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd, but he pressed forward, needing to lay bare the rawness of his experience. "In my rashness, I sought to tear down walls, not realizing that true change comes from understanding the structure those walls were built upon." Each word resonated deeper within him as he spoke, revealing layers of his emotions he never dared to confront. Memories of childhood mistakes and lost opportunities pulsed through his mind. Jake had felt adrift, no compass to navigate his turmoil, until that night. What had been a moment of rage morphed into a transformative jolt, pushing him closer to a hard truth. Confrontation isn't merely about destruction. It could be a tool for rebuilding. "Though I acted out of despair," he continued, "I stand here today as a reflection of one emboldened by my past." The room fell quiet, capturing his transformation. "I came here to learn, to build bridges with you. I'm not just a father trying to provide for his daughter. I am a man seeking to piece together a more hopeful narrative for us all." Jake could feel the energy shift as the crowd leaned in further. Faces that had held skepticism began to soften. Eyes once shadowed by worry glimmered with recognition. Perhaps they too had harbored similar fears and frustrations, living within their own cycles of confrontation and retreat. He found strength in vulnerability, allowing himself to open up about his mistakes. He spoke not only of remorse, but of accountability. "I realized that change starts with a commitment to face the truth within ourselves, to confront our fears, and most importantly, to choose understanding over anger." A swell of emotion filled the hall. He could sense that he was no longer speaking just to words lined up on a page, but rather connecting hearts, generating sparks of hope. The invisible bridge he had intended to create began to form, a powerful connection grounded in shared experiences. As he concluded, a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration coursed through him. "We have to support each other, learn from one another, and honor the scars we carry, because they remind us of where we've come from. I may have forged my path in anger, but we can rewrite our collective story together." The applause erupted, warm and sincere, echoing against the walls that had once felt so imposing. In that moment, Jake felt an uncanny sensation brewing within, empowerment, born not from perfection, but from honest connection. Yet, as he stepped away from the podium, another realization settled in the pit of his stomach. Embracing vulnerability was just the beginning. Ahead lay the daunting task of maintaining that connection and confronting the doubts that still lingered. How would he navigate the fragile paths he had just started to forge? The shadows continued to loom large behind his triumph. He had ignited a spark, but would it illuminate a way forward or flicker out against the coming challenges? With uncertainty still whispering in his ear, Jake understood one thing starkly: the true test was yet to come. The applause faded, but the weight of silence settled heavily upon Jake. He stepped away from the podium, a whirlwind of uncertainty coursing through him. The exhilaration of the moment was swiftly accompanied by a gnawing anxiety. Had he truly made a connection, or was it merely an echo in the static of unresolved issues? He scanned the crowd, searching for validation, but found faces that reflected the same uncertainty he felt inside. His pulse quickened as he navigated through the clusters of people lingering in the aftermath of his speech. Every exchanged glance and half-smile felt like a skirmish with his self-doubt. Did they believe him? Could they trust him? He recalled the shadowy past that clung stubbornly to him, betrayals committed against himself and others that were not so easily forgotten. Just as anger had once defined him, he feared that doubt might choke the narrative he had so desperately wanted to reshape. That evening, alone in his car, he replayed the moments preceding his speech. "Speak from the heart," he recalled whispering to himself. But now he questioned whether that heart was truly steady enough to bear the responsibility he'd taken on. What came next? The faces of his daughter, his co-workers, and the people he had wronged loomed large in his mind. The tapestry of their expectations was intricate and fraught with tension. In the days following his heartfelt connection, an unsettling realization crept in. Authenticity, although powerful, invited scrutiny. With every intention of forging new relationships and opening dialogues, he'd inadvertently raised the stakes. Would he become a target for doubt, not just from others, but from within? Fingers gripping the steering wheel, he began to plan. If he intended to genuinely connect, he needed to embrace honesty with himself. He couldn't afford to revert to the easy facade of confidence that had previously veiled him. He decided to reach out to individuals within his community to reinforce his vulnerability. Each conversation would be a test of his resolve, a trial of whether he could translate the energy from that night into lasting change. His first call was to Lorraine, a single mom from the community who had witnessed the fallout of his reckless decisions. They had spoken briefly during an auction, informal gathering in the past, and he remembered her unwavering strength, rooted despite the emotional storm she'd weathered. If I'm going to be transparent, he thought, I need someone who won't let me shy away from my truth. When she answered, Jake's determination wavered momentarily, cloaked by uncertainty. I know it's been a while, he started, voice wavering slightly. I was hoping we could talk about what happened. Her responsive silence stretched across the line, amplifying his apprehension. I don't know if you want to, she finally replied, her tone even but edged with caution. That event, it wasn't just about you. Her words, though measured, cut through him, igniting a dormant fear that he had overlooked. The gravity of his actions reverberated not just personally, but also reciprocally, through a world expanded far beyond his singular experience. I realize that now, he replied with an unexpected resolve. I don't want to shy away from accountability, and I need your perspective. The conversation continued, each exchanged word drawing him deeper into the reality of his choices, the ripple effects they authored across lives intertwining with his own. Jake understood that authenticity needed to translate into action. He couldn't merely articulate feelings, he had to embody sincerity. As they spoke, a flicker of realization struck him. Vulnerability might be fraught, but is also fertile for growth. It was daunting, he thought, yet exhilarating to perceive his past not as a prison, but as a crucible for forging resilience. But just as clarity sparked within him, shadows loomed at the edges of his newfound commitment. His phone buzzed again, drawing his focus away. A message appeared from a number he hadn't recognized, an ominous statement hinting at past consequences lurking just beyond his reach. The time has come to face what you've ignited. He blinked, his focus snapping from Lorraine's voice to the screen. Inside, a tempest stirred. Who was this person? What did they know? Would his past choices return to haunt him? The unsettling realization that change was unfolding alongside a new threat made it clear. Maintaining this journey of connection was only the beginning. Jake's resolve would be tested yet again, and the stakes were about to become more personal than he anticipated. Jake stared at the message on his phone, its stark simplicity slicing through the fog of his introspection. This was no idle threat. It was a reminder that the past lurked in unexpected corners, just waiting for an opening to emerge. Who was sending this? The question echoed with relentless urgency. His mind raced with possibilities, each more foreboding than the last,
as he tried to pull apart his emotions from the looming anxiety. He glanced at Lorraine, who was still speaking with measured words about the fallout from his past decisions, but Jake felt his focus drifting. He was no stranger to the consequences of his actions, yet now, with her voice offering an anchor to accountability, he hesitated. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into the abyss of everything he tried to walk away from. "Jake?" Lorraine's voice broke through the haze, pulling his attention back. "You still with me?" "Yeah, I'm here," he replied, forcing the tension from his voice. "Sorry, just got a weird message." Her brow furrowed as she sensed the shift. "What kind of message?" "The kind that feels more like a warning than an invitation," he said, deciding to keep the details under wraps for now. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked gently, her concern palpable. He shook his head, though she couldn't see. Discussing the message felt more dangerous than exposing his vulnerabilities. Instead, he redirected their conversation. "We were talking about accountability. What does that look like to you?" As Lorraine articulated her views, Jake's mind darted back to the life he'd built for his daughter. Not so long ago, he had been defined by rage and regret, yet the notion of being a role model now loomed larger than ever. If he was to face whatever was coming his way, he needed to reinforce these connections. His resolve crystallized. After finishing the call with Lorraine, he took a deep breath, trying to ground himself. He reached for his notebook, scribbling down questions about how he could genuinely foster relationships rather than letting fear dictate his choices. Jake realized he was building a new foundation, one that required constant renovation and reevaluation, but also one that promised to reshape his character. The next day, he decided he would reach out to the few individuals he felt he had let down. This time, instead of merely apologizing, he intended to engage them in real dialogues. As he drafted a carefully worded message to one of his former coworkers, a flicker of doubt crept in. Would they even want to hear from him? Did he have the right to ask anything of them after everything he did? Pushing this hesitation aside, he hit send, feeling an almost immediate relief. The act of confronting his past had, in itself, morphed into a small triumph. There was an unfamiliar excitement mixed with trepidation. But Jake wasn't prepared for the phone to buzz almost instantaneously with replies, one after the other, inviting him to coffee or expressing interest in catching up. Each response was a thread, pulling him closer to the fabric of accountability he desperately wanted to weave. As he steered through the week, he met with faces from his past, moments of laughter shared amidst awkward silences, conversations that bubbled with unspoken tension yet held the potential for healing. With every encounter and exchange, Jake felt a nagging whisper in the back of his mind, the shadow of uncertainty mingling with the warmth of connection. But then, late one night, fatigue washing over him as he scrolled through his messages, that same ominous number appeared again. "Don't think you can mask what you've done. I'm watching." The stakes had risen higher, and doubt clambered up.
The walls of his mind. Was this just a fear-based manifestation of his guilt, or was someone truly out to derail his progress? Slowly, an unsettling realization washed over him. In choosing authenticity, he had also chosen to face his past and its consequences head-on. Jake sat in silence, weighing his options. His heart raced, the steady rhythm of progress he felt beginning to falter. He understood now that embracing vulnerability had its price, and a deep-rooted question gnawed at him. Was he truly ready to face the shadows of his history, especially if they threatened the life he was desperately trying to rebuild? As he set the phone down, the weight of impending decisions loomed, and the quiet resolve he'd summoned felt overshadowed by a darker truth. The real test was looming just ahead, and Jake had to decide if he was brave enough to continue, or if he'd retreat into the shadows where comfort waited. The city's neon lights blurred as Jake drove through the familiar streets, reflections of his internal turmoil painting doubt over the once invigorating night. His heart raced, not from the thrilling sensation of freedom he once used to chase, but out of the urgency waiting in the shadows of his mind.
The message loomed over him, a specter breathing life into his suffocating unease. He hadn't signed up for this confrontation, and yet here he was. He turned down a more deserted road, uncertainty mingling with a growing determination. The sudden idea of facing his demons head-on ignited a spark, a flame of defiance against the whispers of guilt that insisted he retreat. What more could happen if he faced the threats rather than let them fester in the corners of his mind? Little did he know that was the very question awaiting him at his doorstep as abruptly as the messages that kept trickling in. Nearing home, he had steeled himself for the conversations that awaited him there. Each interaction carried with it the potential for growth, yet the specter of the unknown loomed larger. Encouraged by this newfound understanding of accountability, he rummaged through the remnants of his old self, trying to pinpoint what he had learned through each painful interaction. The laughter shared now felt heavy with unacknowledged emotions, and every coffee meeting lingered with unresolved tensions. He recalled the words Lorraine had shared, which hung in the air like the clouds before a storm. Face whatever haunts you with truth, and only then can you reshape the narrative of your life. The message pounded in his mind, to grapple with the past instead of allowing it to assert control. Arriving home, he sat at the kitchen table, the flickering light casting a warm glow against the stark reality of unfinished conversations. He uncovered his notebook, flipping through the pages as a roadmap for growth. The scratched words of intention echoed back at him. What will you shed? What will you embrace? Through the ink, he could see his commitment to evolving and rebuilding his life for his daughter. With resolute purpose, he drafted messages to those he believed could challenge him. Acquaintances from past projects, old mentors, even distant family. As he pressed send on the last one, he felt something that was beginning to resemble confidence. Yet, just as he leaned back, a thought invaded those high spirits. If shadows from the past were persistent enough to reawaken anxieties, would he stay unscathed by opening up every wound? Sleep plagued his attempted calmness, his mind racing through all the unreceived replies, questions cloaked in darkness. What would their responses reveal? He forced himself to adhere to his commitment, opting not to run from what he had set in motion. But did that strength come from authenticity or desperation? The next day, an unexpected reply burst into his inbox. "Let's talk. You owe me that much." It wasn't hostile, yet the message felt like a match tossed into a barrel of dry hay. He knew this conversation would be difficult. The individual on the other end was directly tied to one of his most significant failures. The gravity of accountability settled, pressing against his chest. Fueled by an uncomfortable mix of purpose and dread, Jake reached for his phone. Would he face this individual, or would he allow them to retain the power of that past mistake? This was the true crossroads, each thought racing through the consequences of his choices. With one eye on the messages that could lead him to deeper reckoning, could he stomach the awakening of his past mistakes on such a public stage? As the time approached for their meeting, a visceral knot formed in his stomach. The reality of facing one of his most notable critics sent adrenaline racing through his veins. And yet, it was this very confrontation that might propel him toward authentic change. Little did he realize, the moment of truth, the reckoning that lay ahead, was also bound to unravel deeper discoveries within himself than the messages he feared. Jake took a deep breath, wrestling with the thought that perhaps some pasts needed confrontation to illuminate the path forward. The doorbell rang, startling him from his thoughts. The time had come to face the shadows, and it felt like the precipice of everything he had been trying to escape. Would he emerge unscathed or find himself irrevocably transformed? The moment of reckoning was here, and from the shadows he would either rise again or falter. Jake stood hesitantly at the door, the uncertainty of the moment colliding with determination to embrace accountability. As he opened it, he was met with the familiar figure of Will, the businessman whose career had suffered, in part, due to Jake's reckless decisions years ago. The air between them was thick with unsaid words, regret simmering beneath the surface. "Jake," Will said flatly, stepping inside. The chill in his voice immediately reminded Jake of the nights he had replayed that fateful incident in his mind, filled with shame
and self-reproach. He motioned for Will to sit, an instinctual effort to regain control over the unfolding narrative. Silently, they settled at the table, the previous warmth of the kitchen now overshadowed by an air of confrontation. Jake sensed every inch of his skin prickling with the weight of expectation. He took a breath, forcing himself to embrace the discomfort. I know you have questions," Jake said, not entirely certain how to begin. Would he acknowledge the past directly, or would he attempt to distance himself from it again? Each answer felt like a concession, a step back into the fortified castle of old defenses he was trying to dismantle. Will watched him intently. "You know I never got the closure I needed after that incident. It wasn't just a setback for me. It changed everything. My family, my job, my life." The raw honesty in his voice sliced through Jake's reservations, revealing how deeply tied they were to one another's history. I can't undo what happened," Jake blurted out. The admission rushed from his heart, raw and unrefined, bypassing the safety nets of his mind. Will's expression softened, the tension between them flickering in the firelight of shared experience. "I appreciate you saying that, but it doesn't change the reality I faced. You have no idea how deeply it cut." The vulnerability in Will's voice prompted something to stir within Jake, a flicker of empathy that sparked both guilt and a deep longing to repair the fractures left behind. With every moment that passed, why they were gathered shifted from confrontation to something deeper, an exploration of mutual consequences. Jake remembered Lorraine's words about truth offering a path to healing. He leaned forward, sensing that unearthing the weight of their pasts might unleash new accounts of courage previously hidden beneath layers of shame. "I'm sorry for the effects of my actions, the ripple they caused," Jake declared, the honesty spilling forth. "I'm working on growing, on being someone my daughter can look up to." The admission felt breathlessly intimate, turning what could have been a battle of accusations into an exploration of potential rebirth. There was a pause, charged with possibility. Will regarded him, perhaps seeing not just a man who had stumbled, but one who was genuinely attempting to unveil a path to redemption. "How are you planning to change?" Jake took a deep breath, the vulnerability blazing within him. "By confronting my mistakes, by reaching out to people I've hurt, and by learning from every encounter." Each word resonated with sincerity, and with every shared breath, he felt the weight of half a decade gradually lift. Moments of silence stretched between them, with both men faced not only with their past, but with the burgeoning promise of what could come next. Just when Jake believed they might have turned a corner, Will quietly shifted the mood. "You mentioned I find it a bit ironic, reminding you of responsibility while standing here." The unexpected comment struck Jake like an arrow, instantly redirecting him to the reckoning within, an undeniable truth he had yet to untangle about fatherhood and accountability. Suddenly, it became not just about facing Will, but about confronting how his past choices could affect his relationship with his daughter. Was he forging ahead with integrity, or was he simply trying to mask his shortcomings? "Maybe it's time we have a real conversation about accountability in our lives," Will added, his tone shifting again, heavy with the implication of shared growth. As Jake absorbed the charge in Will's words, he felt something inside clench tightly. What accountability meant would shift profoundly, beyond the discussion at hand. Could he unravel not just his past, but also the future in a way that would empower both him and his daughter? The tension escalated as Jake opened his mouth to respond, a response that might change everything, reverberating through the corridors of their intertwined lives. Would he have the courage to reveal his deepest fears, thus forging a new path toward redemption? As he leaned forward, heart racing, ready to voice the desperate truths that could either break them or unify their stories, he was acutely aware. The moment of transformative realization was now. Jake's heartbeat quickened, the weight of liability pressing down on him as he contemplated the raw authenticity required in his impending confession. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, he acknowledged the rush of anxiety surging within him. Would he be able to articulate the depth of his profound sense of failure? The silence stretched, pulsing with his unsaid fears and an almost physical tension that connected him to Will across the table. He broke the stillness first. What I didn't fully grasp before, I just thought I was managing my anger. I didn't understand how unleashing that rage turned into collateral damage for others, your life, your goals. Will's brow furrowed. And now, he probed, a hint of urgency coating his words. What does it mean to you, this responsibility you talk about? Jake leaned back in his chair, grappling with perceptions of his past and the visions of the man he wanted to become. It's more than just apologies. It's about preventing history from repeating itself. I've been careless, reckless, but this time I'm realizing I have to make better choices, not just for myself, but for my daughter too. As he spoke, a sliver of determination surged within him, pushing through the net of doubt. The notion of being a father, providing an example of integrity, ignited a flicker of hope. How could he navigate the past to carve a brighter future? Will observed, his gaze intense. Talk is easy, Jake. Anyone can say they're sorry. It's what you do next that matters. How will you demonstrate this newfound accountability? Jake sat up, processing the challenge in Will's words as if they were heavy weights. One step at a time.
I've cleared up things in my personal life these last weeks, but I know I need to be proactive. I'm starting with rebuilding relationships, and that means addressing the harm to people like you. The conversation shifted, the air growing slightly warmer as Will adjusted in his seat. Just acknowledging it? What if that's not enough? His response triggered Jake's mind to race. He recalled Lorraine's countless lessons on self-awareness and self-improvement. They echoed in the corners of his thoughts. I want to show my daughter how to take responsibility when wrongs are done, and that only comes from tangible actions, he stated. I have to take the steps that matter, just as I plan to with you. This revelation felt like a clearer path opening before him, as if the fog of his past was lifting. Yet within this clarity was an understanding that contentment was far from his grasp. Will's wounded expression, though softened now, tugged at Jake's conscience, reminding him of the painful burden he had imposed. What if your actions aren't enough to mend this? I've spent years fighting back against my own demons, Will pressed, though the edge of accusation softened with curiosity. Jake's heart thumped heavily, the questions planting a seed of doubt. What if I fail again? What if I'm just perpetuating the cycle? Failure is inevitable, Jake, Will replied, leaning in slightly. Growth comes from how you respond to it. Acknowledgement, action, and accountability. It's a triad that requires unyielding resolve. You're asking for harmony, but can you embrace the cacophony of change? Jake swallowed hard, feeling the liberation that came with acknowledging his shortcomings, yet still confronting the daunting reality that awaited him. Yes, harmony can't exist without chaos, he murmured, his resolve surfacing deeper than the gut-wrenching anxieties. I suppose the key is first confronting the chaos within myself before I can expect calm in my relationship with my daughter. This journey has to start there. The conversation hung in the air, pulsating with unexpressed implications. As Will met his gaze, recognition flitted across his features. They both understood that the upcoming accountability would require not only confrontation, but also integrity on a level neither had known before. Just then, a new thought struck Jake, one that coursed through him like electricity. But what if we started holding each other accountable? The question hung between them, alongside the palpable history of hurt and regret. "Are you suggesting an alliance?" Will asked slowly, eyeing Jake, seeking clarity amidst the weight of pain and the prospect of healing. Jake felt the surge of hope rekindle, and yet an almost breathless apprehension lingered. Would they truly embark on this tumultuous journey together? As he leaned forward once more, the words trembling on the tip of his tongue, he knew the crux of his transformation hinged not just on accountability to his past, but what they could create moving forward. The moment felt poised at the edge of an abyss, charged and terrifying. The time had come to face both our pasts together. Jake's heart raced as Will's question lingered in the air like a specter waiting to be confronted. The idea of an alliance, of fortifying their resolve through mutual accountability, was exciting, yet terrifying. For so long, isolation had been his shield, the walls he constructed around himself serving both as protection and prison. Now, the prospect of connecting with someone who shared a history of pain felt like a double-edged sword. "Yeah," Jake finally replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "An alliance. We're both wrestling our demons. Maybe facing them together can lighten the load." Will studied him, skepticism flickering in his eyes. "And if it doesn't work, this isn't just a game, Jake. We risk more than pride. It could take us both to dark places again." "I know," Jake replied, his voice dropping. "But does that mean we shouldn't try? I'm tired of running." The admission struck harder than he intended. The truth of it chafed against the remnants of his bravado. Silence enveloped them, thick and pregnant with the gravity of their shared, turbulent experiences. Finally, Will nodded, the tension easing just a fraction. "All right, but it won't be easy. Let's start by confronting our individual challenges, then regroup. We hold each other accountable, but also be prepared for the unpredictable." Jake felt something akin to relief envelop him. "I can do that. I can start being honest and let you know when I'm faltering, not just pretend everything is fine." "Fine isn't a destination, it's an excuse," Will said, an earnestness in his voice that resonated with Jake. "We'll need to dig deep, share what we've held back. Do you think you can face what you've buried?" The question reverberated in Jake's mind, echoing the unease that had long been a companion on his path. He had buried his emotions deeply, attempting to shield himself from further pain. But the silence of repression would not bring him peace. "I have to. I'm ready to face the truth, no matter how harsh. For my daughter, for myself." A brief glance out of the window interrupted their exchange. The sun dipped low on the horizon, shedding warmth that hinted at change. "It's funny," Jake mused, "how light can feel almost like a challenge, a reminder that I need to step out of the shadow." "Embracing discomfort is a part of growth," Will added. "In confronting your truth, you'll find that you're capable of more than you think." Jake inhaled sharply, the weight of vulnerability resting heavily on him. "It means I'll have to let my daughter see me mess up, to show her that failing doesn't equate to being a failure." "Exactly," Will said with conviction. "Transparency breeds resilience, and in that you equip her with the tools to face her struggles." Jake envisioned his daughter, her bright laughter flickering in his memory like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. The notion of protecting her from his struggles, to be the flawless father he envisioned, was unrealistic. He realized that his imperfections could be an educational vehicle. "Okay, this honesty starts today. I'm going to begin with the first step, calling my daughter. I need to let her know I'm committed to being a better version of myself," Jake said, uncrossing his arms as he stood up. Will's approval gleamed in his eyes, offering an encouraging nod. "That's a strong decision. Don't forget to tell her how much she means to you amidst these changes. It grounds the transformation in love." With steely determination, Jake nodded, stepping toward his phone. Yet the moment of commitment was tinged with anxiety. What if she pushed back? What if his past choices shattered her view of him? "Will," Jake hesitated, weighted by uncertainty. "What if she can only see my failures? What if my efforts to change feel inadequate to her?" "Those are questions to explore together," Will replied. "But remember, change is more than a title, it's a journey you share. You might just inspire her to confront her own struggles. That could be the start of something incredible for both of you." The thought ignited something profound within him, a notion that his path toward redemption could set a foundation for her to build on. With a deep breath, he grabbed his phone, fingers trembling slightly as they hovered above the screen. As the dial tone resonated in his ear, anticipation mixed with fear. "This is for us," he whispered to himself, bracing for the call that could shape their future and signal a new chapter of accountability, one rooted in honesty and shared growth. But as the ringing continued, a nagging doubt emerged. Would she embrace his honesty, or would it push her further away? With each ring, Jake battled the inner turmoil of expectation versus reality. In those moments, everything felt poised for profound change, and yet uncertainty loomed just beyond the horizon, grappling for control. Jake stood at a crossroads, not merely a physical junction, but the very precipice of emotional rebirth. With every ringing tone on the other end of the line, his resolve ignited. The past few weeks had been like climbing a mountain, seeing the summit just within reach. Change wasn't just a fleeting idea, it was now a palpable truth he could grasp, starting in this moment. When Lily answered the phone, her sweet, innocent voice made his heart swell and ache all at once. "Daddy?" she queried, unsure and gently probing. "Is everything okay?" He paused, the words threatening to buckle under the weight of his longing to connect, to be more than just a shadow in her life. "Lily," he started, feeling the tremor of vulnerability wash over him. "I need you to know how much I've been trying to work on myself." "What do you mean?" she questioned. That question, innocent yet profoundly penetrating, opened the floodgates of his personal metamorphosis. "I made some bad choices before, and I realize now that those choices hurt people, including you. I'm trying to be better, Dad, and I want to show you that I'm working hard to make things right." The silence on the other end felt like a canyon, vast and echoing with his fears. What if she couldn't see beyond the mistakes he had made? But he pressed on. "I want you to know you can always talk to me about anything. I'm here, and I'm changing for us." "Okay, Dad," she replied, her voice softening. "I love you." The unqualified acceptance in her simple words struck him like a lighthouse cutting through fog. This moment marked a profound shift. Acknowledging each misstep had transformed from mere conflict into a rich language of growth. Jake ended the call, but was not finished with the message of authenticity. Every ounce of courage he had amassed over the last weeks now poured out onto the page of his notebook. This was accountability morphing into action, a recognition that his past could empower his future. Terrified yet resolute, he took to his community. The very people who once had borne witness to his anger now needed to see the man who stood before them ready to rise and heal. He arranged meetings, not just to explain his situation, but to listen, to explore their stories woven with his in the tapestry of their shared struggles. Each conversation was a reclaimed breath, punctuated not by the shallow gasps of regret, but rich inhalations of promise. One evening, seated with those who had felt the repercussions of his mistakes, he laid it all bare. "I harmed you all in my quest for validation through anger, but I am ready to take full ownership of that pain and grow from it." Their responses varied. Some nodded in quiet acknowledgement, others vocalized their concerns, but all reacted. Proof that his vulnerability was indeed a bridge toward understanding, not an admission of guilt alone. He transformed his relationships, fostering connections based on honesty and recognition of shared humanity rather than isolation. With each passing week, the shadows that once loomed overhead were retreating. The foundation of fear began to crumble, replaced by confidence grounded in shared experiences. Recognition followed. He was invited to speak at community events, where his narratives of accountability turned into a beacon for others. Change isn't linear, he proclaimed, standing on the same makeshift podium that once had felt insurmountable. It's a journey of trials and triumphs, one that we must walk together. The community's support affirmed him, a man learning to stand tall in his truth. Each applause felt like a celebration of both his vulnerability and their collective strength. And Lily watched with pride, her eyes sparkling amidst her father's legacy of transformation. Jake's past no longer defined him. It shaped him into an advocate for accountability. He floated between conversations of healing and hope, each exchange forging deeper connections with not only his daughter, but everyone around him. The cycle of despair, anger, and failure was replaced with resilience, community, and love. As he lay in
bed that night, sleep came easily, the kind that washed over him like a gentle breeze. He had accomplished more than mere change. He had crafted a narrative built on trust, responsibility, and fortitude. The voice of his daughter, along with the community's embrace, echoed within him. "I love you." Leaving behind the angst that once suffocated him, he realized this. His truest personal achievement was not only the reclamation of himself, but the establishment of a legacy his daughter would inherit. He had emerged, reshaped, standing proudly as a father committed to a future built on love, integrity, and, most importantly, understanding. Life awaited him beyond the door, and while challenges would inevitably arise, he was now profoundly equipped to navigate them, armed with authentic connections and a solid sense of self. This was the moment he had fought for. The legacy of transformation lived. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.